Welcome to the Doom Kitchen. This is not a news show. It's a talk show. We do not give financial, legal, medical, or any kind of advice. We are not responsible for the actions of our listeners. You are responsible for you. If anything offends you, we were only joking. Promise.
Welcome to the Doom Kitchen, and I've talked about him before. I listened to a guy named Gerald Celente, and he gives trends advice, and he always says to get in the best shape that you can, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And today I'm joined by Richard Harris, who seems to have all of that stuff down. What's going on, Richard?
I don't know if I can live up to a compliment that high, but I certainly aim to. It's nice to be here, Andy, and I already know we're going to have a really good conversation today.
Yeah, I can see that. I started watching your vids, and I'm like, okay, this guy's as you guys say in England, really switched on. So,
cheers, mate.
But so you're a life coach.
Yeah, well, that's just a name, because I don't think there's really a name for what I do. What I've made a vow to myself to do is to try to live better and help other people live better. And the closest approximation to that is life coaching. And when I started, I was like, right, if I can just get everyone to do the right supplements and do the right meditation practice and do the right nutrition and the training and the positive psychology and all that kind of stuff, then all their problems will be fixed and it'd be good. And that's not to undermine that stuff. That stuff's really important, really. If you don't train, you should train. If you don't know how to fast and cleanse, you should learn that stuff. It's really cool. But my own personal development was naive. And what I found is with those principles of personal development, it works for a while. If you're magnesium deficient and you take magnesium, it's going to do you a world of good, right? But then that well runs dry, and then you're like, nah, there's still something wrong. And then you go to the next thing, and then that will fix it. And then there's still something wrong, and you go to the next thing. And then where that leads inevitably is not merely in the psychological, but it's in the deeper parts of the psyche, in the spiritual. They're like frequencies, material, psychological, spiritual, and then spooky, archetypal. I think that's a low resolution, pretty decent map. So then I had to work that stuff out for myself, which, believe me, is hard and expansive and probably takes many lifetimes to do well. So to say, am I a life coach? I am, but what it means is I think a good life coach should understand all these different domains of the human experience, and then try to have strategies and tactics and insights and capacity to learn in all of those things. So that's what I do.
And so one of the things I decided, because you're a coach, and that basically we're going to pretend that we're playing a game right now with the World Economic Forum / Davos / what we used to call the Bilderbergers and Trilats and all that, because really our enemies right now are really the same enemies that the world always has had. They just change shape and call themselves something else, and their agenda has always been the same, and that's to milk us for as much as possible and just treat us as slaves. I mean, the things that I see coming down the pike, for instance, the 15-minute cities, I know that those have picked up over on your side of the pond a little bit more than they have here. But funny enough, even Trump is advertising a red version of 15-minute cities. He's selling it in a very positive way, and it's a lot of problems that we've all identified, but it's the same thing. And it's they always lay traps like that. That's how this two sides of the same shekel situation works, is that they just do their thing on and they funnel you into this camp, they funnel you into that camp, and it's always red versus blue or whichever. I guess y'all have Labor versus National or something like that, right? Labor
versus Conservative, but who gives a fuck? It's
yeah,
the same.
Right, exactly. Yeah. and you always get the same end result. The end result is less for humanity and more for the monsters that run everything. But yeah, so we're gonna pretend you're our coach, and we're all on the same team. Which that's one of the biggest problems right there. Is it doesn't seem like we're all on the same team. Um, the divide and conquer, as I was just mentioning, is probably the elitist biggest strategy that there is.
Well, I wonder about that. I mean, it's certainly one of their big strategies, but I don't know if it's their biggest. I mean, like, I guess when the history books are written in this time, we'll have all the strategies.
Oh yeah, he did say that his internet might be unstable. He's currently in the countryside. It looks as if he's frozen right now. Hopefully he comes back soon. But yeah, so they do divide and rule, and then there's all the other things that they do to funnel us into strategies. It's really weird seeing Richard just frozen over there. But they have all these strategies to keep us at each other's throats, because if we don't look at each other, then we might look at them. And I think recently with the ramp up in tyranny that we've had, and just to where it's so obvious, they went along with calling it the new normal. It was the new normal, and I think that most people, I mean most people that are gonna woke up during that, and now we've still got people that are just gonna go along with the current thing, whatever it is, regardless. And yet again, I'm hoping that he comes back, because I think we were in an important part right there. But yeah, so these people, they'll go along with anything. They'll go along with whichever war, or whatever the news is going to tell them to be afraid of, or to attack their neighbor about. And getting us on the same page seems like the way that they can't do what they do without us. And that's one of the reasons why this one, they're being a little bit more overt than they've ever been before, because of the ramp up in technology. The ramp up in technology as far as drones go to police us, the ramp up in technology with artificial intelligence to replace us, because ultimately that's what it intends to do. Artificial intelligence can go and replace even important things that you never thought would be replaced, like the highly paid, highly skilled things, in as far as doctors and lawyers even. And yeah, I mean, I'm concerned that one day robots are going to be driving these trucks, and I'll have to figure out something else to do. And some people like me, I know I'll be okay, because I can always figure out my way no matter what is going on. I've just had that. But there's some people, some of these older guys, that they're not going to know what to do. And in that world, it's going to be pretty difficult. Um, yeah, it doesn't look like he's made his way back. I wish I could pause the stream. And I'm sorry to those that are tuned in live. If you're tuned in live, just to help me a little bit, send me some comments. I'm not seeing anybody at the moment, but I'm really hoping somebody's out there, because I've seen this thing show that I have 0 people in the audience, and then I'm still getting comments. So, um, those invisible guys out there doing the VPN thing that you're not allowed to do later on, you guys know that the Restrict Act, the thing that they're utilizing in order to police TikTok, because they say that it's basically Chinese owned media. And that's actually, the Restrict Act actually says TikTok in it exactly 0 times. So it's really for all kinds of platforms. And with the Restrict Act, they're going to try to cut us off from VPNs because they won't let you be anonymous. That's the thing. They have to put as many counts on you as possible so that they can come after you whenever the time comes. And like I said about 15-minute cities, is that those things will be policed by drones. And you know what? It's been a long time since he's been off the screen. Um, yeah, I wonder if I should just restart. I think that might be the method. Uh, yeah, I think that's the method. I think I'm just gonna restart and throw him a fresh stream key. But yeah, because I could sit here and go on and on about stuff, but I'm not really much of a solo podcaster. I know that you guys have seen me put out quite a bit of stuff, but I've never put out anything by myself, and I lose my train of thought sometimes. I forget what I was going to talk about, mess up, etc. I'm not really good at doing monologues. I'm not a monologue kind of guy. Plus, like I like to play the douche flute, and since I can't do that with the microphone going live, I have to mute it, and I'm going to do that really quick. But yeah, anyway, you don't want I don't want to play the vape crackle over the internet feed. Um, I know it's a bad habit, and somebody can get on my case about that. I don't mind you getting on my case. Um, let's see here. Is that an email? Okay, cool. So Richard should be back soon. Um, I don't know if I've prefaced it enough. What's going on in the world right now? There's a lot of poison out there. Uh, Things they're trying to put in our food, put in our water, um, put in just in us, and you know what I'm talking about. Um, there's a lot of things that these people that are trying to run everything are doing right now in order to keep us down, and they've done some things to dumb us down and um, and make us more docile and weak, and filling us with things that are things that make us sick and tired, and probably partly some of the things that are keeping people at each other's throats. I know that this has ramped up over the last several years, back to what I was talking about whenever Richard cut stream, because it looks like he's coming back soon. But the divide and rule, um, where they put us all in different camps and have us blaming each other for all of the problems that they cause. And, and yeah, that's another reason why I like to be able to mute Mike. Uh, but all the problems that they cause, they want us to blame each other on. And that's one of the ways that they keep us in line, because we're too busy to look up and see that it's this thing that's coming at us rather quickly. Um, they they don't want us spending cash. They want everything to be through electronic money. They have what's called central bank digital currencies coming down the road, and central bank digital currencies are one of the big ways that they'll be able to control you. I know that recently you might have heard stories about Mastercard and a couple other companies saying that they wanted to prevent their customers from being able to purchase weapons. Yeah, so your self-defense is determined by your creditor, and they'll just cut you off, and so they can take whatever trendy politics of the day is, and with the left disarming everybody seems to be one of the big things as far as their trends go, um, and police your life that way. Then, as the robots and the AI, automated drones, etc., all these things start to take people's jobs, then they'll put everybody on a UBI, and that's why they snuck this UBI thing in. It. I want to say it was about 2020 when they were talking about UBI. But here's Richard coming back. Here we go.
Hey man, sorry.
There he is.
Honestly,
No,
if the internet isn't working, it's my adapter. Like it doesn't connect to this French power source very well, so I'm terribly sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. Yeah, I was just killing time and rambling on and on. I'm I'm not too good at being by myself. That's a thing that I need to learn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything was fine. But man, were we talking about like different strategies and tactics that the cabal uses to enslave humanity?
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, part of it is the divide and rule and keep us at each other's throats so that we're fighting each other and we never see who's pulling the strings and who's making the decisions that are keeping us down, and the ones that are causing the problems. There's a lot of problems that lately I'm sure you heard about it, but there was a train spill, and I want to say it was February. It seems like ages ago now, but yeah, they burned off the contents of this hazardous waste train spill, and it's polluted everything in the area, and it's it takes a bunch of ineptitude, of course, to do that, but then they had a movie that predicted it, and a book. Actually, there was a book that predicted it, and it was obviously a play out of a strategy that they had already come up with. They're not very original. They do the same things over and over again.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack that. So the archontic powers are not original, and actually, like archetypally speaking, like so much of like the way they do like a Soviet revolution is the same as now. It's just like with a modern spin. And it's almost like there's this somewhere deep in the inner, like there's this plan that they just keep pushing forward just to see if it works. So like they remind me a lot of like bureaucrats, like or like trust fund kids. Like they've got like this obscene amount of power, but they're just really crap with it, and it's like, hang on a minute, you've got all this massive power of creation. This is the best you can do. So they remind me of that a little bit. But it's going back to the strategies and tactics of like and divide and conquer and stuff. It's remarkable to me how similar the cabal's things are to like an individual narcissistic abuser or an individual abuser, because they triangulate too,
Yeah. It's weird because they just seem to just rehash this whole thing. Like the certain thing that they've got going on right now is a new form of kulakafication. They've made the cisgender and the and all of these things this new form of kulakafication. And then there's also what where they're pushing everything the same way. And to me, I think that's just proof that the ones in control of all of this are demonic, because they don't have the power of creation. That's something that was given to man.
Yeah, so this is something I find endlessly fascinating, Andy. Is like, because like since this thing started, you look at Team Good and Team Evil, and like they look like the same kind of people, right, on the surface. But then you look under the hood and look at their spirits and their psyches, and there's a whole different thing. And like the good people that are connected to the source, that's where all the creativity comes from. And the other side, they're just basically they end up with no creativity after a while. And then so the only job they can do then is like steal other people's creativity, buy it, cajole it, or weasel it out of people, but they can never really make it up themselves. As one entrepreneur once told me, he's a British entrepreneur. He said like it's talking about all the rich people, well, not rich people, the kind of establishment people. He says that their ideas are crap. They're always crap, you know, and so they have to just like sit on these really privileged power positions and just use that privilege rather than like, you know, let the genius inside you create.
Yeah, it's corruption and perversion. So they take ideas that we've had, corrupt and pervert them, and I mean the whole role of demons is to get us to fall off track, to sin. You know, they're giving you all these options. That's you get temptation every single place that you could possibly find it, and they want you to sin. They want you to sell out. That's a big part of it, is selling out, and especially with all the scarcities that they're trying to create. I've been on about scarcities a lot lately, as far as the control mechanism of trying to get us afraid of running out of food and everything. And they can do it, like you said. They ran the same scheme in the Soviet Union, and they did that in the Ukraine, in fact, which is kind of interesting because so much is happening there right now.
Yeah.
And they could do that right now to the United States, and it seems that that's what they're working for. I mean, we just saw a massive cattle plant go catch on fire the other day.
Yeah, common, isn't
and
it?
and I mean, it could have been an accident, but there's a pattern. There's definitely a pattern.
Yeah, I'm sure like someone's made a video somewhere where they've like just shown you the graphs, and they've shown you like, here's the amount of like cattle ranches and chicken places and meat processing factories and the rest of it, and here's how many of them blow up or have caught on fire or got hit by an aircraft. My understanding is it's quite the statistical aberration, and like we don't have to talk like this. Like, we know it's the cabal. Like, World War III has already started. The cabal is after the food supply, amongst other things. They want as much chaos as they can get, so they can, you know, do their order out of chaos and bring in their new world order and their central bank digital currencies and the rest of it. So like of course, like, it's part of their game plan, which is pretty obvious at this point.
Yeah, it's fifth generational warfare, and
Yeah.
that's it's interesting because you're seeing this all play out. You're seeing something that is an ancient battle between good and evil, and you're seeing it play out with all of this technology. And there's a guy, Milton William Cooper, who wrote a book called Behold the Pale Horse, and there's a big chapter in that called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, and it's all about the input outputs of disconnecting people from their family and their community, and basically making them a slave to the new world order. And we've seen that play out, and now we've got an even more modern version of that, where a lot of people just plug in. They plug into their social media or whatever else that they can plug into, and turn off their brains. And you know, anytime you turn yourself off, that's whenever something else can play host to you, or make you play host. So that's
Yeah, if you're sufficiently weakened, then you can sort of like sell out, which I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's a major part of what this war is, and how you can kind of enslave people. And then once you've sold out, you're enslaved. That seems to be how it works. But like, my question to you is like, on the isolation front, which is it's not the only weapon they use by a long way, but it's one of the big ones. Like, what do you think the solution is to that kind of thing? Because I think nearly everyone I speak to is faced with that to one degree or another.
isolation.
Yeah.
It I I've found that getting really comfortable with yourself is I'm in a truck by myself almost all the time. You know, I've got this plastic box to you know, the cell phone that reaches me out to the rest of the world and everything like that. Uh but yeah, I've done a lot of bike touring, and I was by myself on a lot of those. Sometimes I did them with other people, and but for the most part, I've done them by myself. I found out at one point that if you make all your plans around other people, you're never going to end up doing anything, because other people are going to let you down. And so you just got to do it. If you really want to do something, you do it, and you don't just sit there and go, oh well, you know, hey, I'm gonna go out on this vacation, but I have to have this one person, or it's not going to happen. Well, it's not going to happen. They're going to let you down. or if you're going to buy property or something and you need this one person, it's not going to happen. You might as well buy half of the property yourself, you know?
With respect, I push back on that. I think what you're expressing there is part of the solution. It's a waypoint, because like if you're in a profoundly sick society, then what will happen is you will be let down and you'll be abused to the degree to which you open up a relationship, if the majority of people are abusers. And then so one part of like escaping from that part of the matrix is saying, look, I'm happy to kind of be by myself for the rest of my life. No family, no sexual relationships, no friendships, no business partners, nothing. And then once you make that decision, like it gets rid of all the neediness. Now you don't need a partner, you don't need family. And when you don't have neediness, it means you're not going to put your respect at the door in order to get the thing that you think you're gonna need. But then what happens after that is like without the neediness and then with the self-esteem and the courage, you're then able to open up to relate to other people in this fashion. And I think that's the way forward. I think like being comfortable with isolationism is a massively valid part of it. And I think like because underneath neediness is a fear state, because you need the thing because you're afraid of not having it. So that's how fear feeds into it. And the way that you deal with fear psycho-spiritually is you push through and just go to the other side. That's the sort of like, you know, general rule of thumb where you deal with fear. But I think like what the cabal fears, and I think where we are empowered on the social front, is from that foundation of no neediness, with self-esteem, with respect, and that, you know, self-esteem and respect, they're kind of like two. You rearrange the equation of love, and they're like two things that pop out of it. With those principles in mind, then you reach out to the right people in the right way, and with harmonious relationships, you know, you can move mountains, and that's one of the things we humans are amazing at. And that's one of the big weapons that we are challenged to develop in this fifth generation war.
Yeah, so a big theme. I know that Ron Paul is about to do a conference in a couple of weeks in Houston, and the theme of it is nihilism, and nihilism is something that they are utilizing to control us. They want to cultivate the hollow space within people in order to fill it with all of their gross stuff. And I just came to a conclusion the other day that the reason why they're able to do this is because society has gotten away from spirituality. They've gotten away from God, and if they don't fill that hollow space, then the cabal can fill the hollow space with scary things, lower entities, and that's probably one of the reasons you see so many people going mad, as you guys say, at this point. There's people, you've never seen anything like this. You know, there was a small fraction of people doing crazy things, but now it seems the whole world is crazy. We're in this clown world, and so they tear open this whole this space, fill it full of nihilism, and let the other guys come in and drive. But if you don't fill that with Jesus, if you don't, you know, because that's infinite love, you have to tap into the infinite love that is Jesus, or you will fall to these things. Or at least that's what I think. That's the conclusion that I've come to in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so let's go back and forth on this, because like I think it's really important to flesh the spiritual war out, right? I think most people in the freedom movement understand that this is indeed a spiritual war, but there's less nuance on like, okay, well, what are the nuts and bolts of fighting? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? I mean, like you call it a hollowness, and that, you know, that may be the most appropriate metaphor. I always thought about it as like a retardation. It's like I've learned to see the psyche and the spirit as like just like the manifested world. It's full of structures and energy channels, and there's things in there. I mean, you mentioned demons and stuff. That's one example of like the zoology of the inner. There's all sorts of stuff, and then inner and outer also have this particular relationship. So I always looked at it as like a retardation. Like if you allow the inner planes to become retarded, it's kind of the same as if you let your body become really weak. Like all this bacteria and just diseases can come into it and take over. And I think the inner is like that also. And I think if like you know, one follows in the true teachings of the Master Jesus, for example, and allows some degree of the Christ to overshadow them, then that is a fantastic way of doing that. I absolutely do not think like Jesus was the only prophet, the only magician ever to have lived in the many hundreds of thousands of years of human history. Like the prophets, sages, great magicians, and sorcerers come and go, all through the ages. I mean, like what about all those great ones from South America? What about like Buddha? What about like Krishna, or like like some of those guys in Atlantis getting up to whatever they got up to, like so I think gnosis is gnosis, and we would do well to admire someone like the Master Jesus, who absolutely nailed it. It was like the way I look at him is he's like a Michael Jordan sort of character. Did some stuff that is truly magnificent. But like we the way I approach it is we look at all these different characters and use all their different examples as a way to grow that gnosis from within. And actually, just to finish that point, this is particularly pertinent because not only is this World War III, but it's between two ages. So we also had the extra complication of like the truth of the age of Pisces receding away as the truth of the age of Aquarius dawns. And what's happened is we had all of our big prophets, like Jesus, for example, at the beginning of the age, that set the age up. The church set it up, and then it got calcified and decayed. So now there needs to, like all religions, need to have a renewal phase, so that we kind of like relearn the gnosis, re-get the truth, re-establish it, and then the calcification process can happen again. So that's another added bit of nuance, danger, opportunity that there is in this particular war. And my own personal terror of like the new world order and like the sort of global technocracy hell world that they've got planned aside. Like the positive way of looking at it, Andy, is it's really interesting, it's really fun, and this is a preposterous opportunity for the growth of the soul just merely being here at this time.
Yeah, this it's a really, I mean, part of that nihilism, how they implant it into people is you can turn on your screens all the time and see just the terrible things that people are doing all the time, and that it's highlighted, it's in your face, it's raking over you, and it's probably doing, well, first of all, it's demoralizing you, but it's probably doing spiritual damages in other ways. There's so many ideas that they're trying to make not taboo right now as well. They're just increasing the depravity of society. I see a lot of things of people trying to normalize things like incest, which is just okay. It's like, are we going that far now? Is that how far they want to take this thing? But yeah, that's where they're at. They're trying to appeal to a really, really dark side, and a side of where right is wrong, and that's just classic. That's classic evil trying to get to people, is where they wrong is right, right is wrong. They just swap
this
everything.
is really interesting. So listening to you, I'm like, okay, so this is really interesting because the Satanists are actually kind of like quite like Old Testament Abrahamic in their thing, because they actually know what the moral rules are, and they're clear cut about them, and they're attempting to invert them. So it's like an inversion of a clear cut set of moral guidelines, but clear cut nevertheless. And it's very interesting because the Gnostic way of looking at the whole thing is much more nuanced. It's like it's the good ideal is way more nuanced and doesn't at all exist in the manifested world. And the closest we can get on it is to understand that it's etched in our hearts. And we know right from wrong because our hearts feel it, and then we try to approximate this good vision into the manifested world as closely as we can, though we can never do it perfectly because an archetype can't exist in this world no more than like a cube can exist in a two-dimensional piece of paper. So it's very interesting to me that just listening to you there, I'm thinking, well, they're still like quite clean cut with it, and like that, like but they're just doing the inversion of it, and I find that very interesting.
Yeah, I did a really big episode with my my aunt and her friend Maria, and we talked about all the satanic inversion going on, and how that's it plays into all of the Marxist stuff as well. I mean, that's it fits right into it, and if you can get people to think backwards, then you can get a lot of things going. And back to what I was talking about with the filling filling the empty spaces with the love of Jesus is that is an abundance. That is something that is infinite, and there's always this scarcity of love that they want people to feel. It's always false scarcities. It's how they're going to push this crazy climate agenda. It's this false scarcity of that, and then there's the false scarcity of health that people got fooled into injecting poison, and it was because they thought that their bodies couldn't handle this thing, that they couldn't handle this thing without it. So they didn't have they had a scarcity of, I guess, immunity. And yeah, we're always dealing with these false scarcities as their mechanism for controlling.
Yeah, good series of points there, and again, it comes to the spiritual retardation. So, like, if they do the inversion right, and we do like the immoral things, the way the Satanists will want us to do, the point is it retards us, and then through our retardation, we become weak, and then through our weakness, we're easy to control, and that's the game. But then the opposite is like if we have discernment to see these abuses and have an aim for the good, and then have a strategy to overcome whatever's thrown against us, then every one of these abusers becomes like a coach or a trainer, and they expose us on our weaknesses, and then we become stronger with everything. And then so the society splits into two people. And again, there's so many ways you can split this society. I find it absolutely fascinating. You have people that are either doing the abuse or sell out, as you say, that go along with it and go live within the rules of those false gods. And then you have the people that will overcome. And the more, especially at a really kind of acute time like this, where the pressure is really on, what's happening is the overcomers are just getting stronger and stronger and stronger by the day. I see it in everyone around me. It's amazing. Because all my friends are overcomers, because like, do you find that you just can't gel with people from the other side at the moment?
Yeah, I can't deal with people that are defeated in their mindset, and yeah, I've lost a lot of friends over this situation. I stopped doing Facebook mainly for the reason that I saw everybody was just going crazy, and I'm thinking, okay, well, if people want to find me, they know where to find me, and it was a really great way of learning who your real friends are. But as you were talking about being an overcomer and pushing through, and you said that fear is the thing that you got to push through to the other side.
Yeah,
And
as a rule of thumb, a psychological rule of thumb, like if you're ever coaching someone, they're afraid of something, you say, well, go to the other side and there's a pot of gold.
yeah, that's how we hone ourselves. And so now maybe whenever we see some sort of situation of fear, that we should just embrace it and realize what we can accomplish by getting through it. What kind of muscles we might gain from that.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like every one of these situations is a challenge for us, and it's a projection of our own unfinished business, and it's there as an opportunity to develop somehow, and then when you have that attitude, which I think is a much more true and real attitude to have, much closer to our authentic self, then like the suffering is either mostly or entirely taken away, because like it becomes fun. I mean, yeah, it still hurts, but like it becomes a fun, playful dance as you try to like wrestle against the best of yourself, against the worst of yourself with the best of yourself. Whereas if you feel like a victim, like something is done to you, and this person is like doing you, and wouldn't the world be a better place if this person didn't exist? Then first of all, you don't do anything to fix anything, but it sucks because like you're just like, this is a world full of abusers, and this is horrible.
Yeah, without the psychopaths, we wouldn't be in the place that we're in. I noticed that you talk a lot about narcissists, and I think that it's just a layer of psychopathy, right? And
Yeah.
then the people in charge, they're obviously some layer of that. They're a very progressed form of that, and the people you don't want to be around. So when you're building a community, I can't remember the guy's name, but he talks about avoiding psychopaths, and that is your key to survival. I'll figure out who it was, but yeah, is your key to survival is to stay away from psychopathic people, because their whole goal in the world is to abuse.
1,000,000%. And like that was one of the biggest freaking lessons it took me so long to learn in this life. Like, first of all, to understand that there are these people like psychopaths and narcissists and stuff like that, and actually they're remarkably common. Sadists too. It's all, as you I think quite correctly pointed out there, it's all part of a continuum that you might call evil. But then to have the discernment to know who is who, and then to have like the strength to put the boundaries in place and the will to walk away, and absent of the neediness. So the neediness can trap you there, because like, let's say there's this chick that's narcissistic, right? But she's got big fake boobs and she's super hot and the sex is really good. And if there's a needy streak in you, you might just think, oh fuck it, it's gonna be great. Like, I know I'm doing myself some bad here, but like, what they're there to test you on is like, listen, doesn't matter how good the sex is, right? Like, if you trade in your respect and the higher functions of yourself for something lower like mere pleasure, it's gonna cost you. And their job is to beat the shit out of you until you get it. Interestingly, that the highest, that energy that comes from like the Christ, the Krishna energy, that loving energy inside, they don't have that. And if you get like just a little bit of it, these people are completely disempowered around you, and there's nothing they can do so much that energy is within you.
That's interesting. I had a relationship with I guess I would call her a narcissist, but she was, she was an addict, and that's another part that happens in there. And as far as being able to manipulate people emotionally, they don't feel the same as us, but they know exactly how to make us feel. They know how to pull the strings to make us think that what they say is true, and it's really weird how predatory they are. They're definitely different than regular people.
Yeah, so I mean, there's obviously so much you can say about this, and if anyone in our audience is like finding any of this familiar, like, I recommend you go on a personal development journey and understand the nuance of codependency and narcissism, because it's a fixable thing, but it takes a long time to do it. There's a lot of theory and a lot of analysis, like self-analysis, that you need to do. But like, one of the ways I've come to think about this whole thing is like what they do is they feel something, right? They feel inferior deep down. They feel like full of shame, because their self-esteem is like rock bottom and that kind of thing. And what they try to do is they try to like project that onto other people. You're the one that's lying. You're the inferior one. You're the crazy one. But the mechanism behind that is actually like they have to feel it themselves and then trick you into thinking that the feeling belongs to you. So that's interesting, because I think like on the political, we were saying earlier about how like the macro is really similar to the individual. Like they do that, like you notice they totally project all the shit that they're doing. You're the selfish ones, like you're tricking everyone, you're misleading everyone, all this kind of stuff like that. That is exactly what these clowns are deliberately doing, but they're trying to say that on other people. And again, I find that so interesting, how like there's this archetypal truth to how evil operates, like it's like a playbook that they just kind of instinctively know how to do.
Yeah, if you don't put out misinformation, then you are going to get in trouble for misinformation. That's what they have set up for us. That's why people are getting banned from all kinds of platforms. And yeah, so if you don't say what the organizations that are controlled by some definitely psychopathic, narcissistic people, well, I won't say definitely, I will say in my estimation, just because I don't want to get sued, but when you look at Bill Gates and you're like, yeah, this guy's a psycho, and he runs this organization, and they put that in charge of your health, and that you have to echo every single thing that organization says, or you lose your channel. you can't communicate anymore.
Yeah, well, of course it's preposterous, like, especially when you lay it out so cleanly like that, Andy. It's like it's right out of the Soviet playbook. But the interesting thing is like that's for people that are kind of on the edge, that are wrestling, with it, right? Like, and we realize, oh, I better say this because I might lose my chance. Deeper in the swamp, it becomes real. It becomes really real. Like they really believe this shit, and they really believe that, like the horrible lies they're putting out are truth, whilst the actual truth is buried deep within their psyche somewhere. And you can test this, because if you start to probe it a little bit, they get defensive. Not this or this or this, but the truthful thing you say generates the defensiveness in them. So it's interesting, because part of their psyche needs to know that the truth is there in order to know what to defend and how to defend it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So they really do deep down know what they're doing is wrong. That's fun to think about. That's
Well, they have to. How could they be defensive if they didn't know what to defend?
yeah, it's just so many things that they just push forward, and I always think, oh, the public's not going to go for that. I don't think they do. I don't think that the general public goes for a lot of this stuff. Uh, but it's what's going on the news. It's exactly as the news is has presented it. It's always the same way. It's why the Operation Mockingbird was so important for them. They had to get all these guys on the same page.
Yeah, major linchpin part of it. But it was so interesting, Andy. At the beginning of the scamdemic, when I was doing everything I could to, like, try to get the censored information out to everyone and say, look, I think this is a bit of a lie, it's a bit of a scam. The authoritarianism isn't justified, and then the jab is going to be fucking dangerous. Like, I remember, like, when speaking to one or two family members, and they were like, well, you want to be careful of cognitive biases, Richard. And I'm like, fucking mate, like, first of all, like, this, how dare you? This is my craft. Like, don't talk to me as if I don't know about this stuff, which is a little undermining and degrading, to say the least. But like the cognitive biases are like obedience to authority, or like groupthink, or like, if you see something on the news, it must be true. Those are like the most powerful ones. And like it's so funny to me how, like, again, it's all about projection and inversion. Like, the people on the other side think, oh yeah, like Alex Jones is brainwashing everyone so he could sell supplements and all this kind of thing. It's like, mate, if you actually study the literature and you look at things like, I don't know, just the things you learn in first year psychology in uni, like the Zimbardo Stanford prison experiment, or the Ash Line experiment, or the Milgram's experiment, where like 70% of people on average go all the way to the death button for the sake of a freaking experiment. Like, they're all obedience to authority figures, to guys in lab coats or running prisons and that kind of. And again, part of the double thing is, like, most of these, like, it seems like the middle classes, they really got hammered the most of this thing. Like, the upper classes, a lot of them either knew what was going on or were in it. Working classes, I think, saw through it a little bit more than the average. The ones that they really did a number on were the middle classes, because they were so, like, dumb or midwits, but at the same point so painfully impressed with their own tiny little intelligences that they could actually know about things like the Stanford prison experiment, and know the history of things like Nazi Germany and stuff like that, and then see the fucking thing, like, unravel before them, and not see it. Like, it takes a special sort of mind to be fooled like that.
Interestingly enough, the science fiction movies for the past probably 60 years have all had some sort of theme that was similar to this, and you could point to it. It's just like the movie. Look, V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
They use this this to control people, and they still don't get it. And it's really weird, because they're the people that are plugged in all the time too. They're most of the people that where the biggest problems are the most mediated of people.
Yeah.
I don't watch as much TV or movies as those people. In fact, I tend to avoid TV and movies.
Yeah, great point. Look, I think both of us, and probably just about everyone listening to this in your audience, understands that, like, nearly all the media, mainstream media these days, is propaganda. Like it's either thick propaganda or thin propaganda or medium propaganda, but it's hard to find any films or TV series and stuff like that that is not propaganda. And if you're watching mainstream media news, obviously forget that is just thick, creamy, like treble cooked propaganda. So one of the things I've been doing recently is like I've been going through the films like for the 80s and like the 90s and stuff because there's some good films there, and not so many of them have so much propaganda in, and if they do, it's like a lot easier to spot. Like for example, I watched Police Academy. It's really fun, you know.
Well, there in 2000, I think it was 14, the Smith-Mundt Act in the United States was what prevented them from propagandizing us. And so since then, almost everything has been complete propaganda. Funny too that, you know, another one of those themes that they picked up recently was the years before the scamdemic, they were shoving zombie fiction down people's throats. It was really crazy how much that, I mean, I was watching it for a little while and then I got tired of it, and I realized one of the things that made me not like it was because I realized what it's an analogy for. It's you know, the people that they dehumanize is what the zombie is the analogy for, you know.
Mhm.
And then the whole it's gonna get you sick if you get close to it, and that's really interesting now that whenever they panicked about everything, oh yeah, well, you know, you're gonna spread this thing, you better, you know, you're gonna come around me, you gotta have this thing on your face. And so they put them all into their favorite fiction in their own reality, and that's a really weird thing, that a weird trick that they pulled.
Yeah, it
And so
really
you knew
is.
that it was planned. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no, such good points about the zombie films. That like, did you know that it's like there's some sort of like literary theorists say that it's the only modern story. Did you know that?
That's interesting. So Night of the Living Dead was the first one back,
Well,
Ramiro, or was there
what they
before that?
do, if you and I knew more about screenwriting, I think I've heard other screenwriters explain that there's a number of stories. Like let's just say the number's like 12 or something. There's like a Romeo and Juliet story. There's like a Dr. Faustus story. There's like 12, and you can do so many iterations of them, but there it really boils down to this 9, 12, whatever the number is, plot lines. But what some of them are saying is like, well, actually, there's another one. There's like the 13th one that only started appearing, say, on the Night of the Living Dead or something like that, and it's the zombie narrative, and it has these certain ingredients into it, and there's probably been several hundred zombie films and TV series, but essentially it's this, and then because I think like artists of all descriptions, that they're seers of sorts, and a true one can find something deep within the psyche, draw it forward, but not explain it like a scientist or philosopher could. Instead, what they do is they literally express something they can't really articulate, but they can feel because they can see so deep. So the artists then like see further than other people, and you can watch movements, psycho-spiritual movements, coming through the collective unconscious first through the gifted artists of this time. And you might argue then that, like, you know, this sort of like wave of zombie movement started to appear comes in is because like there was a psycho-spiritual event moving through humanity that we're now seeing it in the manifested world, that was being picked up by those prescient sort of artists.
Interesting. Yeah. Those are called tropes. So I would think though that the zombie thing would be an extension of the way that vampirism spread, you know, because that you had with the Dracula story, you know, that he could turn other people into vampires, and that you know, they're obviously not mindless in the zombie way, but but they are differently motivated.
Yeah, I
And
think they're different. Do you think vampires are like is a story for like sort of abuser type people, like narcissists and that kind of thing?
uh yeah, I could see that. I think I think it's a trope for a reason, and I think that there's some reality to it. There's a reason why eating blood is forbidden in the Bible, and 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 that there's countless people throughout history that have been caught eating other people or consuming the blood of other people. So, and yeah, that too, as long as with the zombie trope, is that cannibalism. Just going off to some undiscovered island and getting terrorized by a cannibalistic tribe is another story that could relate to the zombie thing. So I'm not sure if it's modern, but I know it's a trope.
Yeah, well, but my understanding is the zombie film is a modern trope, and like you won't find it earlier than like 50 or 60 years ago, or whatever it is.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, they really pushed that down. As far as uh, it was a build for sure, because I remember in the early 2000s it was building toward it, but then all of a sudden that was everything. That was in everything, and then boom, Scamdemic comes out. So
Yeah. Which is so true to form, isn't it? So how do you think the rest of the war is going to go with like the scamdemic and the economy, and what's your thoughts on, say, like the next couple of years?
well, I know what they have planned, and as far as I know, that the big intention is to change the money to central bank digital currency, and there was also UBI, which is going to be a big part of that. I think that's with the you're seeing that sort of come from a slow build right now. California just is doing this whole crazy reparations thing, and I think that's going to come in the form of that UBI. Um, and that's basically central bank digital currency that expires or can only be used for a certain category of things. Um, they still want you to own nothing and be happy, so everything's going to be heading toward a rent or a single use, like vending machine kind of thing. Is I use my cell phone to get me a car to get me to a place, um, and or just have things ordered straight to you. I know that the big push is for the 15-minute cities. Um, there's there's of course the intention to make us eat bugs and other things that we consider inedible at this point. Um, and I also the new police. The new police, I think, are one of the reasons why they're letting all the third worlders into the Western countries, is because they can get them to police everybody else. They've got their drones, they've got their dogs, and so that's how they can also spark chaos. Um,
Yeah.
and like I was just reading a thing that in Haiti, that there's that cannibalism's on the rise, and they're like putting it out on the internet, and one of the biggest groups that's been crossing the U.S. border has been Haitians.
Yeah, again, that's mental, man. Just the amount of like the way you said it earlier, that's just the sheer weirdness in the world that there is today. Like, there's a bunch loads of cannibals in Haiti now, and they're coming into the United States, and it's not even the weirdest thing happening. It's bizarre times. But like my question to you is like with the central bank digital currencies, because it feels like my understanding is that's cooking to like maybe come out this summer. And like one of the things I follow quite closely is the economy, because a big part of my business is like investing and that kind of thing. So like, do you see everyone going along with the central bank digital currencies? Because I've got a feeling that that's just not going to bite or
They won't
hook with
need it.
them.
They
Yeah,
won't need them. So it'll just quietly happen. Your bank account will the dollars or pounds that you have in your bank account will be converted into this stuff without them even telling you. You might click a little box without reading the thing that your money is being converted, and a few years later they'll just pull the tablecloth out from under, and boom, there you are. You're on CBDC and you didn't even know it.
yeah. Okay.
That's how they do their best. That's their best work is done that way.
Well, it is, but like my understanding is like this one's been pushed forward quite a lot. Like, and I think it was supposed to be like, next year or later. And because like a lot of their stuff isn't flying and people are getting wise to their tricks, they're having to move the scams forward. So it feels to me like maybe this one hasn't had enough massaging and preparing ready yet.
Well, it's very early in this. I mean, it's 2023, and all of the things that we're talking about is in Agenda 2030.
Yeah.
And the thing I was watching yesterday was a clip of a woman saying that that they will all of the countries, every single country in the world has signed on to be cashless. So um, it's gonna be the state. The state's money seems to be what people are using right now. I still my thing about crypto is that you still need other entities in order to utilize it. Like I just withdrew some crypto in order to put the deposit on the house that I just bought, because I was using my crypto account as savings. Um and whenever I pulled it out, I had to go through 5 or 6 steps, and you don't have to use those specific ones, but if you utilize one of them, and say that company goes under in the instance that you're trying to get your money transferred from them, then they're not obligated to give you your money. And once your money has been turned back into fiat, it's fiat again. And so until it gets into your bank account, and even then, when it's in your bank account, it's still fiat. So there's a lot of things that they can do to hurt this the crypto movement, and that's why of course, I think more so than metals, that I think people should be stockpiling useful things. If it's useful now, it'll probably be useful later.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
and if they tank the entire economy, then having somewhere a box of 200 toothbrushes or something crazy like that, you only need maybe about 2 or 3 a year, will really come in handy, especially as a thing that you can trade with people. And
Yeah, good
uh,
points.
and I don't know how crazy it's going to get. Uh there's all kinds of different things that could happen, and I know that the oppressive class, I'll call them at this moment, is if they don't get their way, they might just push the button too. That's a thing that's got me freaked out.
Well, like that is a thing, and I think like my understanding is like the cabal like is quite keen on an escalation in the war in Ukraine, for example, because it just might give them the advantage again. But if I don't know how familiar you are with the UFO side of things. Do you follow that quite closely?
I don't really. I know that there's other entities, and I'm very interested in demons. I was for a time interested in UFOs. I would say that I don't I don't think that we're being visited by something distant. I think that whatever we're seeing is a phenomenon of a world that we don't fully understand. And I think that there's possibly other dimensions, and I I've been interested. I'm not fully subscribed to Hollow Earth, things like that. Um, and so there's a whole bunch of stuff that we don't understand, and everything that they're always conclusive about, it seems to be a lie.
Yeah,
So
yeah, fully. Anything that the mainstream says is a lie, or it's there to like misdirect you somehow. But well, I mean, I actually agree with everything you said there about like demons, and then you get like celestial entities and all that kind of stuff. But there are also physical UFO craft, and there are and it seems to be that they're from civilizations not from this planet. So you get trans matter frequency things, and you get things from different planets, and you get things from this planet too. Like we actually have our own sort of like deep state scalar physics fleet, for example. Like I say, I don't have it. Like the Rothschilds or someone has it. But like you know, and you can listen to like the testimony of people like Bob Lazar or something like that to get an idea of like what it's like. But these sightings, right? So like there's a couple of things that to my understanding they really are interested in. One of them is they like sacred sites and the energy lines that surround sacred sites. So where I usually live in the West Country in the United Kingdom, we get 90% of the world's crop circles there, and they're done next to these sacred sites on these energy lines. And you'd have to be quite initiated into the, you know, just all that stuff to know where the lines and these some of these random sites are. And
Is it ley
yeah,
lines?
it's similar to ley lines. So the ley lines are the straight lines in the map that connect the sacred sites. And the reason why there's a road there is because the sacred sites are there. And the reason the sacred sites are there is because there's these energy lines, big ones, weaving across the land. And then when they cross over, you build like a holy well is there, for example. You build a stone circle, then you build a temple, then you build like a monastery or a cathedral or something. But there's a certain spiritual power that comes with these places. So what Freddie Silver, if you're interested in this stuff, check out his work. It's fantastic. But he in his books on like crop circles, he explains that like they do them on the energy lines to sort of like imprint this energy to put it there. So that's one thing that they're interested in. Another one that they're interested in is the nuke bases. So like a lot of people don't know that like Roswell, which is this like really famous like American UFO thing, like at the time that was the only nuclear base in America, and so it's there that the aliens were interested in. So and there's been numerous
Well,
instances. Yeah, go ahead.
real quick, as far as Roswell was the military base. That's where the Air Force was based, and that's
Yes.
why Roswell always gets associated with that sighting. Now, that sighting was closer to Albuquerque than it was to Roswell.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe I'm missing some of the finer details on this, but in broad strokes, that Air Force base of Roswell was the only nuclear base at the time, and so these creatures with their UFOs have a track record for checking out these places and actually disarming more than once. I don't know what the number is, but my understanding is several of our nuclear weapons when they've been launched. So you know, I don't want to bet on this stuff because like nuclear apocalypse is just too horrible to even bear. But like there is a track record for these aliens, these UFOs, to like disable nukes, and I think they're in moral authority to do that because like they're obligated to leave us alone to our own devices to work our own stuff out. But when we set those things off, like it sets these big chain of events and shockwaves and things through different you know, dimensions, matter frequencies and stuff like that. So they're in moral authority to do it. So it's like if you blew something up in your back garden, but it was going to do something to my back garden, I'm allowed to step in and stop it happening. So there's some comfort there because they actually have a track record of stopping these nukes. And I wonder if our cousins from the stars would step in if something like that was starting to escalate.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the idea that Earth was far more advanced at one point than it is now, and
Yeah.
that maybe that some of these things could be remnants of a time that was a lot more technologically advanced, and that some natural disaster or possibly us blowing each other up, which you know could be our fate right now, is what reset us. You know, it's like whenever you look at Mount Toba, I think it was Toba. It apparently, according to the records, because you really can't get a very accurate record, it knocked the population of the world down to less than 1,000 people.
Wow.
And so that's what you call a population bottleneck. It would have it would change the genetics, obviously. Only those 1,000 people lived on. So people before that could have been all kinds of different. They could have been purple. They could have had, you know, iridescent skin. They could be all kinds of different things. And those people could have died off. Interestingly enough, whenever I was looking at that as well, when that explosion, when the volcanic eruption took place, we were still coexisting with Neanderthal, according to records. So that's interesting too.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, I think that there's a lot of theories that you can have on the on UFOs and aliens, and are we being visited, and what they are, what they aren't. Uh, a lot of the ancient cultures had visits from fairies, um and the fairies could be what they were perceiving as, or what we're perceiving as aliens as fairies, or something like that. It's
yeah.
there's just different there's all kinds of different ways, and it seems that back in the 40s or so, whenever science fiction was becoming really popular, that they created the alien look. They created that whole flying saucer and things like that, because we've seen triangular things in the sky. We've seen saucers, we've seen cigar shaped things. There's been all kinds of different things that have been witnessed in the sky.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
uh the other thing is, you're talking about these sites. I'm in Utah right now, and not too far away from Skinwalker Ranch, and that there's a whole bunch of speculation theory that that's a UFO buried under the ground, and that's what's causing all the phenomena there. But the weird thing about Skinwalker is that it seems to tie a whole bunch of other theories into it, because apparently that's where you're more likely to see um what is it the Sasquatch, or the dog man, and a bunch of other things are happening in that area.
Wait, okay, so I've heard of Skinwalker Ranch before, but I've never gone deep in it. Do you want to give me and the audience a bit of an overview of what that is?
It's this area in western Utah, or sorry, eastern Utah, and yeah, there's just a lot of paranormal activity there, slash UFO activity, all kinds of things that people witness, and you're not allowed close to the ranch itself.
Okay, okay. Yeah, sounds like a classic, like series of conspiracies to me.
Yeah, yeah, it's just one of the weird ones though, because it's like the everything bagel of conspiracies.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it
Well,
ties into like Native American, like Wendigo, like things where like these things can invade your body and wear your skin, or they kill their victim and then wear their skin, and that's what the skinwalker idea comes from. So it really is the everything bagel. It's got everything going on there.
that sounds horrific. I'll like if I get any time during this apocalypse, maybe I'll look into it and do some research.
Yeah, I don't know how much is to it, but of course that's one of the areas, the big area that you hear more about the aircraft sightings is Nevada, but Nevada's got some of the clearest skies that there are. So this could be something that you could see really everywhere if you didn't have so much light pollution.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and there are areas that like they're more interested in than others for different reasons as well.
For sure. Yeah. Um, well, we've gone a little over an hour. Probably about an exact hour if you count the time that you vanished there. Is there anything that you wanted to say before you go, and then make sure to promote everything and let everybody know how to find you?
Well, thanks for a lovely chat, Andy. It's always nice to talk to someone that's like open-minded and like given the real stuff some thought, because like I was talking to my mum about this the other day. Like, you talk to people that you would think would be interesting, like quantum physicists or like economists and stuff like that, and like really their interest is so narrow and so far away from where all the action has happened. To my mind, the sort of stuff we're talking about here with like the UFOs, we hinted at a hidden history of Atlantis, the conspiracies, the cover-ups, all that kind of stuff. This is where the actual action has taken place. This is where the war is being fought and where history is being decided. So it's really
Yeah,
nice.
just in some
Yeah.
people's podcasts, and that was another thing. While you were gone, I was talking about the Restrict Act, and how
Okay.
that this is going to be the new way to police the internet. They're definitely coming after podcasts. That I mean, they realize what a thorn in the cabal side that these things are.
Yeah, because like literally, like I mean, I don't. The last thing I ever want to be is pompous, right? But we are approaching the cutting edge by talking about these cutting edge topics, and that's the whole thing that the system is there to get you away from. To start talking about the things which is where the action is. And I think if the Restrict Act starts getting bad in the UK, maybe I don't know. I'm not going to shut up because like then that's when you sell out, you see, and then the Archons have you in one way or another. Then, so I think what I probably have to do is like take my stuff and just like go to Mexico or something, which was always my fallback plan when the first scamdemic started. But to finish the compliment, thank you for being able to talk so freely and beautifully about these bleeding edge subjects. I appreciate you.
Oh yeah, man. It's whenever I got your message or Victoria's message, and then I'm like, okay, I'll check this guy out. And I started checking into your conversations, and I'm thinking, this is gonna be a great conversation. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm sorry about the shaky internet, but like I'm on a pilgrimage at the moment in the south of France, so it's like you take the rough with this move. But to do the plug, like if you want coaching, you can check out my coaching channel at richardharriscoaching.com. And then I do a live stream Tuesday night when there's good internet, which is usually most of the time on Odyssey. So you can check me out at Richard Harris Coaching on Odyssey, and I'm pretty easy to find there. So I think those are the two things to plug.
Awesome. Well, man, we had a great conversation and a lot of fun. And I hope we end up talking again.
Yeah, I hope so, Andy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.